3 months ago, the Houston Police Department released a recruiting video on YouTube, and it's been driving me insane. I don't know why, but it's the little things that get me. In that they're basically trying to expand the definition of paramilitary.
Roll call.
Hey, social media, I'm Officer Sequara Jones. I'm here at the Recruiting Division with the Houston Police Department. And recently, we've gotten a lot of questions as far as paramilitary. Well, let me give you some information about myself.
And it's been happening ever since, well, my case, Tom Nixon versus the city of Houston in 2006, where they try to ascribe characteristics to the police department like it being a paramilitary organization when I don't believe it is. And I would like to explain. In the Oxford English Dictionary, designating of or relating to a force or unit whose function and organization are analogous or ancillary to those of a professional military force, but which is not regarded as having professional or legitimate status. That is a paramilitary organization. What organization would that cover? Blackwater, right?
Private
Now called
forces.
Academy or XE, whatever they're calling Blackwater these days. That is a paramilitary organization, right? And the federal government goes so far as to say, okay, if you're a contractor with the military in a paramilitary function or organization, we'll cover you under what's called the Defense Base Act, right? And the Defense Base Act is it's in Title 42 USC 1651, and it's what provides coverage for people who are operating in conjunction with the military, but who are not in the military, right? So what disturbs me is the encroaching definition of trying to put law enforcement agencies into the realm of the paramilitary. And I believe they're doing it on purpose. Although this officer in this YouTube video, I don't think she realizes what she's being used to do. But they try to equate being paramilitary with standing at attention and having to pay attention to detail.
Follow orders.
Yeah, I'm like, you have to do that in a marching band, you know, in high school.
When they say paramilitary is pretty much resembling military ways. So when you come on our department, yes, you will have to take orders. Yes, you will stand at attention, parade rest. You know, they're going to teach you defensive tactics. They're going to teach you these survival skills that I learned while in the military to make sure that you survive out here on these streets.
And high school marching bands are not paramilitary organizations, you know. So I believe it's done for the purpose of extracting law enforcement agencies or trying to distance them from the Constitution, from the Bill of Rights, from what a law enforcement agency is actually supposed to do, is that it is not supposed to function like the military or in conjunction with the military, which is why we had the Posse Comitatus Act, right?
Exactly.
Which drew a line between the military and law enforcement for that sole purpose. So kind of like we've seen over the past 30 years, the expansion of the definition of terrorism, right?
Yes.
So everyone's a terrorist now who disagrees with the government. So if you're a Catholic mom in Virginia who doesn't want your fifth grader exposed to transgender ideology as part of the curriculum in the local school, now you're a terrorist and you're being investigated by the FBI. And it's disgusting. And it's things like this that I really believe are being done to sow discord and anarchy in our society by eliminating what were well-recognized boundaries in the past. Like the boundary between the military and law enforcement was clear. And I think they're trying to erase that boundary to turn the police into the military or vice versa. And so that's why I want this video to just exist so that at least somebody said something before it happened where we've intermeshed the military with law enforcement. They're not the same thing. They shouldn't be the same thing. A law enforcement agency is not a paramilitary organization, and it should not be. Well, when I start seeing these words pop up in the opinions of a federal district court in the southern jurisdiction of Texas, or I see these words pop up in an appellate court decision from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, that's when I really get angry, because these judges are allowing themselves to be manipulated by academics who are shifting the definition of words,
controlling the language,
and they're supposed to be they're supposed to be above that. District court judges, Appellate court judges are supposed to be above that manipulation of the language, and they're allowing themselves to be succumbed by it and taken over by these shifting definitions, and it's changing our laws. It's changing the enforcement of our laws, and that's what disgusts me so much. Law enforcement agencies are supposed to be confined by the Bill of Rights, by the overall Constitution, by the state constitution. Each state has its own constitution that is also supposed to confine the exercise of authority by its law enforcement agencies. And then along that, you have codes of criminal procedure, penal codes, and then you have codes of procedure, administrative procedure in each respective state. And like, for example, in Texas, we have the local government code. So all of these laws are designed to guide and confine the authority of law enforcement, not paramilitary organizations, right? Blackwater is not confined by, the Texas Constitution. But people in the Houston Police Department are trying to equate themselves with Blackwater. And that's what's really troubling me, because it's not long before that use of language makes its way into some kind of judicial decision. That's the last place it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I find it really disturbing, and I guess I just wanted to make this video to exist somewhere out there in YouTube land, that at least somebody said something before our law enforcement agencies were perverted into military organizations that wound up destroying the individual liberties that we enjoy under the Bill of Rights. I don't know how y'all feel, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, well, I've said for years, everybody's trying to redefine the word define. And they take a word and redefine it to fit their meaning at the time.
And it's not going to be long where anybody who of a certain demographic and of a certain religious persuasion who speak out against the abuse of government are automatically labeled as terrorists. And so what do terrorists require? A paramilitary response. And that's where we're headed. We're headed to a point where anybody who speaks out against the government is a terrorist, and the only thing a terrorist deserves is a paramilitary response. Not a constitution, not due process, not probable cause, not reasonable suspicion. All of that gets thrown out the window, and you just become a subject of a paramilitary act. And that's what I'm truly concerned about with the way I see these definitions being toyed with, shifted, and words being redefined.
Create a crisis.
Rub it raw.
Then bring in your emergency solution. We have to co-opt the police forces, make them, they are, after all, paramilitary organizations.
Straight out of Rules for Radicals.
Fall under the federal rules and federal control. Who knows, But yeah, I mean, some people might say you're crazy and you're paranoid and blah, blah, blah. It just as devil's advocate, I could say maybe they're simply using that paramilitary, we're kind of like a military, to recruit people from the military into the police department. Like, hey, this is familiar to you. You've operated under this type of system. Come join the police department. That might be their defense if you were to ask them point blank. Well, we're just trying to recruit. But yeah, I totally believe it. Those who control the language, those who redefine the words to fit their meanings. And I could totally see that. Exactly what you've laid out.
Well, in the military, they tell you at Fort Benning, and I will always call it Fort Benning.
It's always Fort Benning.
They tell you straight out, as soon as you get off the bus, the Constitution does not apply here. You are under the UCMJ. You will do what we say.
Your government property.
Yeah, I mean, that's their taste of poetry. You are under the UCMJ. You will do what we say. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I think they're trying to do, their ultimate goal is to apply that same standard to police departments.
Yes, you will do as we say. Yes.
The Constitution does not apply to you. And I know this from personal experience, and you can look it up, Thomas P. Nixon versus the City of Houston, where I actually extracted the relevant Supreme Court decision. I said, okay, if I'm going to make a public statement, because I believe that police officers do have the right to free speech, and I believe that police officers have the right to inform the public on matters of public concern, regardless of whether the department likes it or not. They can't take that away from you, and I still hold that position. They're trying to remove that from law enforcement. That idea that a police officer has the right that can't be taken away from them as an American citizen to inform the public, hey, this is what your police department's doing. And as long as they don't corrupt an investigation or lie, and they're not vulgar, and they don't attack a specific individual within the department, like the chief of police or an assistant chief, then you're protected by the First Amendment, so long as it's a matter of public concern. Okay, so that doesn't exist in the military. That also doesn't exist in paramilitary organizations like Blackwater, right? If you're a contractor, if you're a military contractor working for the CIA, the First Amendment doesn't apply to you. That's under the Defense Base Act, where they're, offering you guidance and insurance and protection from injury and all that while operating in a foreign theater. None of that is protected by, or there's no constitutional protection there.
Anyway,
that's where we're headed. So I want to thank you for the time. I know a lot of people don't really even think this is an issue right now, and that's fine. But I think in 10 years, we're going to be living in a completely different country.
Less.
You think so?
Yeah, less than 10 years. I have, not to get too far off topic, but I find it hard to believe that we're going to have a free and fair election even in 2024. I think something's going to happen where they will either try to postpone it, or something dramatic has to happen prior to the 2024 election.
It only takes one mushroom cloud.
I don't know. And I'm not a doom and gloom, and I don't think it's going to be a mushroom cloud. I pray it won't be a mushroom cloud.
He's obsessed with mushroom clouds. Maybe for your birthday.
But yes, I don't give us 10 years, Tom. I don't.
I don't either.
So,
all right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, comment below. We read them all. Thank you.